Welcome back to the Technical Analysis Workshop. In this lesson, we are going to be talking about using support and resistance zones together as one. As stated before, a support is a price level where a stock can be relied upon to bounce off of due to the high interest of buyers at that level. But in this case, I want you to think of support as a floor you're standing on. And when we talk about resistance, which is a price level where a stock can be relied upon to bounce down from due to high interest of sellers, I want you to think of that as the ceiling you're under. Now let's say you're on your basement floor, and you take a tennis ball and throw it at that floor. The ball of course will bounce off the floor as it's acting as a support. After the ball bounces off the floor, it then goes and hits the ceiling, which is acting as a resistance. The ball then bounces down from the ceiling and comes back to the floor for a second time. After the second bounce off the floor, it then jumps back to the ceiling, but this time it finds a hole in the ceiling and goes through that hole and bounces to the next ceiling. After hitting that ceiling, it comes back down to what was the previous ceiling and makes it the floor. Then the ball bounces off the floor and bounces to the ceiling. After hitting the ceiling, the ball comes back down to the floor and bounces off again, but this time it finds a new hole in the ceiling and goes to the next ceiling. This then becomes the new floor and it bounces off that. It hits the ceiling again and then bounces down, falling through the hole in the floor and going to the next floor. What I just described is the way support and resistance work. A stock bounces between the support and resistance zones until one is broken, and when the resistance zone is broken, it then becomes a support. And when the support is broken, it then becomes a resistance. Now I know this might have sounded a bit wordy, so let's hop into some real examples and I'll show you what I mean. As you can see here, we are back on waves on the 1 hour time frame. And in this example, we're going to show you how stocks move in between their support and resistance zones like a tennis ball bouncing between floors. So over here you can see my artistic skills with my mini drawing of how a stock will bounce between the support and resistance levels. If you don't believe me, don't worry, I'm going to show you and convince you with waves. To do this, we first have to place all our resistance and support levels, so let's do that together. First, we can see the stock bounced down to the $18 level and kept bouncing off that level a couple times, never breaking under it. So that's going to be our support for now. We can also see that it bounced down from the $21 price level, as well as the $23 price level and the $25 price level a couple of times. So those are going to be our resistance levels, and we're going to put our horizontal lines there. Now that we have all our levels down, we can already see the classic pattern forming. Once a resistance is broken, the stock then comes back down and makes that resistance support, and then continues upwards to break the next resistance. If you don't believe me, let's use our tennis ball strategy. We're going to start off at the $14 price level down here. We throw that tennis ball down, it's going to hit a low of around $12.60. After hitting that low, it bounces up to hit a high of $21. After hitting the $21 resistance and not being able to break it, it then comes back down to make $18 the support. After making $18 its support, it then breaks the resistance at $21 and hits a new resistance around $23. After hitting that resistance at $23, what happens? It comes back down to what was its prior resistance and makes that a support. Confirmation that this trend should continue. And then what happens next? You guessed it. It broke the $23 resistance and made a new resistance at $25. After hitting the new resistance at $25, it pulls back to the $23 support, or what was the $23 resistance, and makes a support. And then guess what? You guessed it. It breaks back up and hits new all-time highs. Now this simple idea is key to understanding future strategies, so always keep this idea in the back of your mind. Again, a stock bounces between these levels, either going upwards or downwards. Now if you're ready, let's head into the next lesson.